Welcome to the Film Board, the movie conversation podcast reviewing the latest releases that you've seen and want to talk about. I am your host, Ocean, and on this episode, we're talking about No Time to Die.
We used to be able to get into a room with the enemy. Now they're just floating in the ether.
When her secret finds its way out, it'll be the death of you.
Oh my God.
Target enough people.
And the people become the weapon.
Who is he?
James, you don't know what this is.
James Bond, licensed to kill, in love with Madeline Swan. I could be speaking to my own reflection. Only your skills die with your body. And life is all about leaving something behind, isn't it?
Come on, Bond. Where the hell are you?
Today, I am chatting with Kyle Olson, creator of the Swashbuckling Ladies Debate Society podcast, to get his thoughts on this movie so we can share them with all of you. Welcome, Kyle.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I haven't been in the film board for a while, so this is exciting.
Yes, it is. And so let's just dive right into this since we're talking James Bond. So I think the first question I wanted to pose and ask you is to just, it's kind of, we're just going to set the bar, right? So without diving into the movie or in any real significant way, just tell us what you knew about it. What did you know about James Bond and these movies already coming into it? And what were your expectations that you had of the movie going in?
I have an odd relationship with James Bond because I've seen all but one of the James Bond movies, and yet
that's commitment.
but I wouldn't consider myself a James Bond fan. In the same way that, I've seen all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but I don't really like them. But I've seen them all. I guess it was just part of the culture. Just growing up, James Bond is such a dominant force and all this stuff that when a movie comes out, it's an event. Yes. And so you don't want to miss it. So, I mean, my dad took me to them originally, and then by the time I was old enough to go by myself, then it was just an institution. So I had seen all the Daniel Craig ones and enjoyed them. And then so this one, it had been so long since it was coming out that I actually at one point, earlier this year, I was thinking about Rami Malek. I was catching up on Mr. Robot and thinking I never did see that James Bond movie where Rami Malek was in. And I went to the internet and I was like, maybe I should buy that and download. Oh, right. It hasn't come out yet. Because it's like they had hyped it and trailers and all this stuff, and it was going to come out, and then it went away. And then they hyped it and it was going to come out, and it went away. And then finally now, as I was sitting in my seat, I was like, is this going to be an elaborate prank? As I'm waiting for it to start, they're going to be like, ha, suckers, this movie never existed. Thanks for the money. Bye. But yeah, so right, exactly. So I watched all the stuff going through, watch all the trailers getting ready and anticipation. And I didn't quite go far enough to watch the other ones. I started watching Spectre again just to refresh my memory, but I didn't even get through it before the time for the movie came to watch it. So I understand. I was a little fuzzy on the details by the time I got in. I was hoping that the movie would help me along to refresh my memory of what I had forgotten. And it didn't.
It does not. Yes, no. And it does not. So, yeah, I find that for me, while I haven't seen all of the James Bond movies, there's a good chunk of the Sean Connery ones that I've missed, and I probably should go back and see it. Other than that, I've seen, pretty much all the Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan. I actually am one of the 5 people that liked the George Lazenby James Bond.
That's the one I have not seen, and not because I'm specifically against it, but because at the time it was unavailable.
Oh, okay.
Because it was that one that was sort of like the odd one out.
Yeah, it's hard to find. They want to act like it didn't happen.
Right.
And so, and then, I love Pierce Brosnan. He is my favorite Bond. My growing up, I loved Roger Moore, but Pierce Brosnan, to me, supplanted my favorite Bond. And so, but for this movie, going into these, I have a difficult relationship with the Daniel Craig James Bond movies because I, for many reasons, well, all of which I have articulated in the past and will articulate again in the future, do not consider these to be James Bond movies.
Okay.
And so, yes, there are several reasons I do not consider them to be James Bond movies, but of many of one of those reasons is that James Bond movies do not require you to know and remember what happened in the past to understand the present, right? Any of the other actors that play James Bond, if you watch any of their movies, you can watch them in any order, and it doesn't matter. You're going to completely understand everything that's going on. Whereas these, as you touched on earlier, don't work that way, right? So I actually, over the 4 days before I watched this movie, watched all 4 of the original Daniel Craig movies because I was like, okay, well, let me then get into what this is supposed to be about and how it's supposed to work, right? And so for me, since I have that problem already, Spectre is one of the worst offenders of it because it requires you to remember all 3 of the movies to make sense, and this one doubles down on that trope, right? And so as far as what I knew about it ahead of time, big James Bond fan, but as far as my expectations going in, because of Spectre, my expectations were low. Right, I was like, well, I think I'm going to watch this movie because it's James Bond, and so I'm a sucker for James Bond. I'm going to watch it, and there are things to enjoy in all of the Daniel Craig movies, but I did not expect to like it.
Oh, so and we'll get to whether you did or not at the end of the show because we want to keep the listeners hooked, right?
Exactly. Yes. We'll discuss. Did the movie successfully change my mind?
Oh, I'll say, and for my own teaser of the future, this is the first time I remember a James Bond movie having an emotional effect on me, but probably not the one they intended.
Ooh. Stay tuned.
It's another day to live another fairy tale. It's another night to drink and then forget. Oh, no.
We're on Letterboxd. True Story FM's family of film podcasts are all a part of the Next Reel's HQ page. Letterboxd is a great way to track movies you see, write your own reviews, and be a part of a larger community of film lovers like yourself. Sign up for your own account today, and if you upgrade to a pro or patron account, use the discount code TheNextReel with no spaces at checkout to save 20%. If you are an existing pro or patron member on Letterboxd, this discount will work for your renewals as well. The Film Board has undergone a lot of changes this past year, but we are working hard to continue bringing you thoughtful and fun conversations about big movies that have just opened in theaters. It does take time and cost money, though. To that end, we could use your support. Please consider becoming a member of this show and the Next Reel podcast to help us out. I know what you're wondering, though. What do members get? How about access to members-only bonus episodes each month? Early access to every episode. Join us before each recording of the Film Board podcast for our pre-show chat to discuss the movie and anything else in the world of entertainment. Watch the live streams as we record our shows, and you can even access the live streams from previous shows anytime you want. Additional channels of conversation in our growing Discord community, and now members get stickers. Let's face it, it just pays to be a member. Head to True Story FM/TNR membership to learn more about our membership tiers. The most it'll cost you is $5 a month. Or if you want to have one lump sum payment and not worry about those pesky monthly fees, $55. And we're back.
Okay, so I guess before we dig deep into the thing, I guess we need to talk about Daniel Craig, because this is part 5 and his final thing, and you have very strong feelings about it. So I think we need to talk about that before we get into the actual meat of No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. Yes. Well.
Okay. So
okay.
You said I like now I'm flipping the script now. All of a sudden, I'm leading the thing because I'm very curious about this. Okay. I know we've brushed against this in times that we've been on SatMat and that kind of stuff. So, but I'm curious to hear a more deep dive conversation about this. So, your standard for James Bond then is Pierce Brosnan, like the Pierce Brosnan ones?
Okay, so Pierce Brosnan is my favorite James Bond. My standard for James Bond movies is all the ones that don't star Daniel Craig.
Okay, so all the rest of them you think match up in terms tonally or like a consistent characterization of James Bond?
James Bond, well, not necessarily consistent characterization. I mean, James Bond changes over the years, right? Because the early Sean Connery one, I mean, look, if they put the early Sean Connery ones out now, that would not work. Right?
Yeah. Problematic to be
exactly. There would be protests in the streets. Yes. Like, I can't believe this movie's getting made. Right?
Remember the one where he pretended to be Japanese?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
classic cinema.
Exactly. That doesn't go over. Or like remember the early Roger Moore ones when he like wanted to when he was interrogating women, he would beat them. Like that. That is not that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's not really what I mean as far as what I'm looking for in James Bond movies.
Okay.
Right? I'm not looking for racism or spousal abuse or anything like that. Right. So what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for, so James Bond to me is a brand that has a formula and it has a way that things work, right? So you effectively, in all the movies, you have a big opening action sequence that is meaningless to the plot, but just is there. Mm-hmm. And then you have James Bond's story arc of every movie basically goes in a nutshell like this. He's going to go somewhere, he's going to meet some girl, he's going to sleep with that girl. That girl's going to die. Then he's going to go hang out with Q for a bit and get some really cool gadgets. Then M is going to tell him what his real mission is, and he's going to go then do that mission. But while doing that mission, meet a new girl that he's then going to do. Then he's going to run across the villain. The villain is going to have a lot of exposition about some plot or some plan or something or whatever. It doesn't really matter what it is. He's going to stop that villain from doing whatever it is they wanted to do and get the girl at the end of the movie. And that's it. Roll credits. We have a formula of how things work, right? And then that's really how all of them work. And so when you're going into a James Bond movie, right, it is analogous to the modern version of it now is really the Fast and the Furious movies. But when you go to a James Bond movie, it's like, hey, I'm going for this thing. I understand what it is. I understand what it is. I understand what I'm getting. Also, I understand too that on any one movie, I don't need to know a thing about what happened in any other ones. Like one of my favorite movies as a child growing up with James Bond was For Your Eyes Only. Saw that one, I don't know, 30, 40 times, right? But I saw that one, that was the first James Bond movie I'd ever seen. And at no point in time did I feel lost or confused and not know what was going on, anything. I didn't need to know what happened in other episodes, in other movies to follow what was going on here. And then even in subsequent movies, what happened in the past didn't matter. With the Daniel Craig movies, break all that formula, right? Not to mention even the details. The fact that he doesn't care about how his drinks are made in the first part of Casino Royale, right? Like, look, the vodka martini is shaken off third. That's the deal, right? So to me, the problem that I have with it is that James Bond is a brand. And if you're going to then make a set of movies that are that, call it a James Bond movie, then that means you're saying we want to make more movies of this brand. What they've done is they've made Jason Bourne movies, right? And they've made movies where you could change the lead character's name from James Bond to Jackson Turner, right? And you would not even think they were ripping James Bond off, right? I mean, the only even nods to the old James Bond, if you look at these series of movies, is every now and again he is driving Aston Martins, right? Mm-hmm. So he is doing that. He's wearing tuxes and suits, and he looks clean, right?
Carrying the Walther PPK.
Carrying the Walther, well, not until the third movie, right?
But eventually.
So right, exactly, but not until the third movie, and so he's not. So yeah, see that there was no the Q's role in this is in these series of movies. He's not really being provided with a lot of gadgets. I mean, at the end of the day, when he meets Q gives him a gun and a car, right? You you could just it's not. Q's not important. M is more important, which is fine because it was Dame Judi Dench, which is a harder name than you would think to say when you say it out loud. So, and that, and she's just awesome. So more of her in whatever, right?
Yeah.
But, but at the same time, they're no longer following it. They were not following the formula of what it was, right? They created a new and different thing. And it's not that I think necessarily that new and different thing is bad. I just think that new and different thing is not James Bond. It's something else. And so then don't call it James Bond, or don't say we're going to make a James Bond movie when you're clearly not doing it.
Okay, I can see your point. I'm not going to try and change your mind or anything, because that's not what this show's about.
Yeah,
but
right.
I mean, don't you think it was time for things to get shook up? I mean, I saw GoldenEye, and I think it's one of the best Bond movies they've ever made. Like, for me, that I would put that in, if that's the best, then one of the best, because they got in some stuff you never seen before, because they talked about other double O's and his past, and like having to go up against someone with his same skill set. I mean, it was a really nice sort of Batman Joker sort of match off, because you had someone with similar abilities, and you got into some of the emotional stakes of it as well.
Right.
And then I cannot tell you the difference between any other Pierce Brosnan Bond movie. To me, they all just blend together. Either there's a guy with diamonds in his face at one point. There was an invisible car that drove up an iceberg or something. I mean, it all just, because it followed the formula. And for me, like, they just became mashed potatoes. Like, it was just blah. So I was excited when sort of Daniel Craig came in and they tried to do something different. I don't know that they succeeded, but I applaud the fact that they actually tried to do to add some depth and stuff. My main complaint with Daniel Craig is the one thing I would say it to be a fundamental personality trait of James Bond is that he really likes being James Bond.
Yes, Daniel Craig does not.
Daniel Craig does not. Like, I mean, like, his version of the character is, this is all terrible. I hate this. I quit.
Exactly.
And it's like, but wait, it was supposed to be you're supposed to be the macho male role model thing, where you're supposed to, like, you get to sleep with all the pretty girls and drive the cool cars and fight every unemployed steel worker gets to watch and go, oh man, wouldn't that be great? But he's like, no, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Flying around wearing expensive clothes.
Exactly.
I hate it.
I mean, I have no choice.
Has any James Bond quit as much as this James Bond had? At least three times. He's like, I'm out.
Yeah. No, he's quit 3.5, depending upon how you think about it. I mean, that's in 5 movies, right? And so depending upon how you view the end of Spectre, he quit then too. Right?
Yeah, it's like the character is trying to break out of the franchise as well. Like, I'm done.
Yeah,
I need to be gone.
Yeah, and so I guess then to address your point, though, getting back to the old one, then we'll and I promise we will get back to this actual movie.
Yeah, I know. I'm just setting the stage. I just want to see mentally where we're at with Bond before we get into this one.
I agree with you that of the Pierce Brosnan movies, GoldenEye is probably the best. I do like Tomorrow Never Dies. But
you'll have to tell me what happens in that one, because I do not remember.
One. You know what? Now that I think about it, see, the Tomorrow Never Dies, the world's not enough. It's Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah, it's the one where there's the big TV mogul guy, but it's the one that has Michelle Yeoh in it. And quite honestly, that was awesome.
Oh, okay.
In China,
all right.
had the great fight scenes.
Any movie's better by adding Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, exactly. That she was awesome in it and all that. It was great. But so anyway, but with those, I think that even in that, on all of the arcs of all the James Bond actors, right? There are good movies and there are bad movies. Right. So the GoldenEye is a good movie. You could, let's see, GoldenEye, the world is not the world, not enough. It was last Die Another Day. Die Another Day was garbage. Right.
Yeah.
That's right. They're not all winners. I'm not saying that they all are. Right. It's no different than if I think about Roger Moore, look, I love For Your Eyes Only. He also made Octopussy, which was bad. Right. So, and The View to a Kill is like, well, if you're in the right mood, maybe it's good. Maybe it's not. We'll see.
Grace Jones,
exactly. Has Grace Jones in it, Christopher Walken's in it. There's a lot there. Right.
Yeah.
So I look at them all. Yes. How much you enjoy each one of the movies and everything is really kind of more a discussion on it, right? And each movie, in effect, stands on its own, right? There's whichever one you like and don't like are all encased in their own independent entity, right? So it's not like, for example, with these Daniel Craig ones. So, for example, the best example is Quantum of Solace. For a lot of people, Quantum of Solace, you like or don't like it based on what you thought of Casino Royale. Right now, Casino Royale is anecdotally the one that's liked the most, right? But Quantum of Solace then becomes a thing of where if you really like Casino Royale, you probably don't like Quantum of Solace. But if you thought Casino Royale was okay, then Quantum of Solace then gets much better, right? But the fact that you're doing a comparison and contrasting, right? And it gets even worse when you start getting to like Spectre, right? Because Spectre relies so heavily on the other three movies that preceded it. You really got to be like, well, am I already all in on here or not? And if I'm not, then it's like, well, you've now made a fourth movie that for me to like it or not like it depends upon how I felt about the other three that preceded it. Not to mention, of course, which is the biggest problem I have with all the James Bond movies, as I've said before, and we'll say over and over again millions of times, I don't have to remember what happened in the past to know what's going on now. The first time I saw Quantum of Solace, I saw it with a group of friends. We were all excited. We went to go see James Bond. 30 minutes in, I looked at everybody. I said, does anybody have any idea what's going on right now? And everybody looked at me and said, no. Because none of us understood that you had to remember Casino Royale because Quantum of Solace starts 5 seconds or 5 minutes after Casino Royale ends, right? And it's like, well, James Bond doesn't work that way. It's always like 6 months have passed and now he's in this adventure, right?
Now he's on the beach.
Right. It's not like literally like at the end of the last scene of Casino Royale, he shoots Mr. White in the leg. And then the first is of Quantum of Solace, Mr. White's in the trunk of the car and he's being chased by other people, right? And unless you remembered that, then the first half hour or so is completely confusing. You don't know who this guy is. Why are people chasing him? Why is there a gunfight? What is going on? Right. So it made no sense. And so you end up having to watch it again just to understand what it is. And so I find that the requirement of a continuum makes it where you're now making something else, right? And that isn't inherently saying that something else is bad. It is, though, that something else is not James Bond.
Okay. All right. So then now we come to this one then. So we had four movies that you were disappointed in.
Well,
but you saw.
That's not necessary. I guess that's not entirely true. I liked Casino Royale. Casino Royale is good. It's actually good on rewatch. I liked Quantum of Solace when I saw it the second time.
You liked Quantum of Solace?
When I saw it the second time, I liked it. It was a good movie. Yeah. Skyfall, actually, I didn't like, but then I saw it again and I did. And Spectre is... I never liked Spectre. It wasn't good the first time. It wasn't good the second time. I am not watching it a third. So I'm just
my main problem with Spectre is they're playing too much off of fan expectations and not off of in-universe expectations. In the same way that Star Trek Into Darkness had this big reveal of I am Khan, and all the fans go ooh, and all the people in the movie are like and
exactly.
And the same thing is like I am Blofeld, and like everyone in the James Bond universe just goes, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Right, yeah, exactly. Unless you watch the ones
Where's your cat?
Past.
Like, I mean, like, there's nothing. It means nothing to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that kind of stuff drives me crazy.
To be fair, there was a cat. But, all right. Okay. So, let's all right. So, after all that digression, now that we've set the table, we set the final one. So, let's talk about this movie, right? Yes. And so, as an overview of it, just at a high level, right? So this one opens with it depicts the killing of Madeline's mother and her escape from death at the age of I think 9, right? Because the whole opening sequence is based on a throwaway line from Spectre that she says, right? And so that's what that whole, it's just a dramatization of that. So there's that, and then it has that scene. Then James Bond's in Italy with Madeline vacationing. They're all in love. Everything's great. And then,
by the way, the credits have still not rolled at this point.
Correct.
We're still waiting for the credits to
yes, the credits still have not rolled. Yes, they're in Italy. And while they're, she talks him into visiting the grave of Vesper Lind, where James goes there. And of course, the crypt explodes in his face, and then cut to the great action sequence that they build up there, which was a good action sequence, right? He's now being chased by some people that we don't know who they are. We assume that they're Spectre agents. So because, that's right, there's a Spectre card. You assume they're Spectre agents. He has that. He now feels that he's been betrayed by Madeline, puts her on a train with the goal of never seeing her again. So then he's like, I'm done with you. Get out. Now we have credits.
Yeah.
Now we have the opening credits. Cut to 5 years later.
I believe that was the longest opening sequence in James Bond history, but the longest pre-credit sequence.
It's the longest movie, so it should be. Right?
Okay.
So this is the longest James Bond movie ever made. It may as well have the longest opening credits. I mean, let's just go, if we're going to go, let's go all in. Let's be pot committed.
Sure.
So, so then you're cutting to 5 years later, and then then there's a drug being developed in secret by MI6 that can kill people using nanotech bugs and DNA match. That drug is stolen. James thinks it's Spectre, and so now he has come back to stop them. What come back, you say? Yes, because in that 5 years, he decided to live in Jamaica and just hang out and not do anything because he doesn't want to be an agent anymore, right? And so turns out, though, that it was not Spectre. There's a new villain, Safin. He's the same person that killed Madeline's mom. Now he's taken down Spectre. He's modified the drug to kill the target and any people that are genetically related to the target, the nanotechs, he modified the nanobugs, right? He modified it so that they would kill the target and anyone with genetic relations. And
no matter what term you use, it's still dumb, but go on.
Yeah, exactly. And so now Safin is going to use this drug to kill just about everyone on the planet. James needs to spring into action to stop him, right? Okay. So this is at a high level, basically what's going on with this movie. Right?
Sure.
And so skipping out a lot of things, but then I think though that
I think you missed probably the one of the most important characters.
You mean the new 007?
No, I mean the fact that there is a 007.5. There is another Bond in the world.
The new 007. Yeah.
No, James's daughter is what I'm talking about.
Oh, the daughter. Yeah. Well,
that's majorly important to this movie.
Is it though? Is it? I don't know. She kind of just hangs out with the stuffed animal and speaks French. So that's really all we got going on there. All right. So let's then, so after that, the overview, and yes, James Bond, it is revealed, has a daughter who he thinks is his daughter, is told is not his daughter, and then told is his daughter. The end. Now, so in the movie, then what is going on with James's life here in this, right? So the initial thing, which we did dance around and talk about before, is that, okay, when this movie opens, skipping over the scene from Madeline's childhood, James Bond has apparently retired from MI6. They don't really say it. They kind of, the implication I got from the movie, and I'm sure you got the same thing, is that they were just on vacation, right? It implied that he maybe he had some time off.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Right? But apparently he had, at the end of Spectre, between the end of Spectre and now, retired. So you already have it where he doesn't want to be James Bond. He is now he feels very happy and he seems content in his new life, and he's going to then follow Madeline to, as we learn later in the movie, Norway. So they're going to go, I guess, live in Norway at a house that apparently where it snows all year. Right, because it's always snowing, right? So anyway, so he's gonna go live in Norway with her and be happy, and then that's when he goes and visits Vesper Lind, and the bomb goes, and he feels he's being betrayed, right? So I think though at this point in time in the movie, you don't know that he's retired until it cuts to after the long opening credits. 5 years later, he's retired, right? So, and I guess then to me, and then I'm curious how you felt about this as well. I found it odd that he didn't go back. Right. And so since he didn't go back to MI6 and he decided that he was just going to live in Jamaica and do whatever spies do, spies / killers do for 5 years in Jamaica, hanging out while, living in a pretty nice place. Right. I mean, it was like, the construction was like, it wasn't concrete, but it had nice accoutrements and everything in it. Right. And so then the thing is, then they're already setting the tone of this is now a reluctant hero. Right. And not someone necessarily that is, that wants to be either, he's not there for king and country or queen and country. Sorry, It is now. Right. So he's not there for queen and country. He's not, trying to, save the world. He's not trying to stop bad guys. Exactly. He's not, doesn't care about any of that stuff. He decided he's just going to be a bum. Right. And just live over in Jamaica, doing nothing. And so, I found that right away to be something that from a thematic standpoint, I was like, well, I don't know that I'm already going to have trepidation now because you've now turned James Bond into someone who quits.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I guess I was curious, like, I don't know, did other people thought this? Did you think this? Were you thinking like, hey, at this point, why did he quit? Like, why isn't he just had 5 years of adventures and now we're back?
Right. Exactly. That was my thought too, because what was it that was keeping that he had on the outside? Like, what is it that he wanted so badly to get away from? Like, I all these times he keeps trying to retire, she's trying to leave. The first time for Vesper, like, okay, like you found a girl and you ran off with her. All right, I get that. That makes sense. I mean, like I just had a friend had the same thing. Just finally met the person and just whoosh and like engaged and they moved away and everything. But I get that. But when it came down to this, when she betrayed him and he was angry and sent her away and never wanted to see her again, then it's like, well, the best thing to do then is nothing. It's like, it seems like that if that is your motivation, if like what you want is a normal, quote unquote, normal life, you want to be married to a woman and living quietly in a very visually stunning locale. That
yes.
seems to be what James really wants. Well, once she's gone, then you just then leave and then do that by yourself. It turns out he's like, oh, I didn't actually want to be with anybody. I just wanted to live somewhere picturesque.
Exactly.
But
Well,
it gets into a weird thing of like, why did you even join the 00 program? That like, I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If this is all the way along, it's just very confusing as to like where his head is at in terms of like why. And again, 5 years of apparently doing nothing, and also every time that happens in a movie where they cut to it's like, how are you affording this? Like these questions always like get to me. Like, how did you afford this place? Did you buy it? Are you renting? Like, did you get M to co-sign? Like, what? I mean, all the logistics of this always like.
Well, it's James Bond. I'm sure he's contract killing on the side. I mean, let's face it.
We don't know that they get well paid.
Well,
because everything is owned by there. Like, he doesn't get to keep the suits. He doesn't get the car. He doesn't keep. No. He doesn't keep the gadgets.
He just freelance. What gadgets? There's no gadgets. That's part of the problem with this movie. There's no gadgets.
There's a cool watch.
There's a cool watch, right? The only gadget he had in that place was the bar that opened with the button. That was it. There's nothing going on there.
Well, he had a fancy drawer. Don't forget that.
That was the bar with the button.
Uh-huh.
The little drawer. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, super fancy. Yeah. So okay. So then, at this point, then he now, James he is basically crestfallen, right? And so then, at this point, he's crestfallen, and now he meets. So Felix comes, and Felix Leiter from he's for the first two movies. He's not in Skyfall or Spectre. He's played by Jeffrey Wright, Jeffrey Wright's doing a great job of acting.
Yeah, Jeffrey Wright is killing
great
right now.
He's killing. He's great. Yeah. So he's gets recruited by him to then they want to find a scientist because unbeknownst to James doesn't know yet about the drug that's been stolen or any of that stuff going on. And so then he's being recruited to then find this scientist. He says no. He then meets the new 007, who's she was awesome. She was great. Nomi was the character's name, but they just referred to as 007 in the whole movie. So let's just she's now 007. He meets her too, finds out that she wants him to stay away from that. And then now his curiosity is piqued because if the CIA, if CIA and England are both looking for the same person but not talking to each other, then now we've got it. Now we got a situation. So now James is going to say, okay, well, now I want to come back to find out what's going on with this. And so through that, he then comes in league with the CIA and goes on a mission to then find this scientist, right? And so
but before we go on, do you think this is the first time that Felix has come to James in the last 5 years?
Well, according to the way they interacted and greeted each other, yes, it was. They hadn't talked to each other since, I guess, somewhere in Quantum of Solace, right? So they hadn't talked in a while, But yeah, and so. Yes, they hadn't talked in a while, and then this is what brought them out.
Because they talk about these adventures, and just because I wasn't up on the lore enough, like I was trying to think, I'm like, are they talking about stuff that happened in earlier movies? Or are they talking about stuff that happened off screen?
I think they're talking about stuff that happened in earlier movies because they were talking about the Casino Royale and everything. Now they all could have been talking about something off screen. I could definitely be convinced that my initial opinion of that is incorrect, but I thought they were talking mostly just about everything that happened with Casino Royale.
Okay.
Right. And, and then maybe some side notes of Quantum of Solace, but I don't know. That seems to be the time he wanted to come back. So he recruited him to bring him back. So I think though, for me here, So then James is going to come back, and then that's when kind of all the adventures and everything starts to begin. He starts to then come back, but he still seems to not want to be 007. He seems to find that there's a new 007. He doesn't want to be 007. He just is like going to get in this adventure, and then once he finds out that it's Spectre, he then feels, I think, more a sense of guilt about the existence of Spectre, and then he needs to stop it more so than anything as far as obligations to your country, obligations to your friend, right? Because when Felix came to him as a friend, he said no. But once he sort of found out that it was two different countries looking for it, he thought, okay, well, that would be kind of cool. Let's see what's going on there. And then it becomes Spectre, and now he has guilt, right? And so now the character seems to be then, at least from this point, thematically just driven by guilt, right? Like he's just like when the first thing breaks up, he's I don't know if he's feeling guilty or being upset with himself because he was betrayed by Madeline or hurt or whatever, and he feels guilty there. He decides he's going to live in Jamaica for 5 years, and then now when he even coming back in, it's like he feels guilty because he's like, well, my adoptive brother is still causing problems, so I need to then help stop him, right? And so I find that to be an interesting choice as far as thematically what you're going to do with what drives your character, right? And that if your character is driven by guilt, then is this now heavier than a James Bond movie should be?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because we shouldn't be spending this much time thinking about this kind of stuff, because the point of the James Bond adventure is just get on with it. Like, shoot the guy, kiss the girl, drive the car. Like, why are we spending so much time brooding? You're not Batman.
Exactly.
You're not John Wick. You're not mourning your dog. You know what I mean? Right. Even for a perennial character for like Sherlock Holmes in the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes, it was an obsession, and so that was one of the things that was the motivating in that version of the character, was he was obsessed with proving that he was the smartest in solving crimes and stuff too. And so you understood that as an underlying character trait. With this particular James Bond, I still don't really know what it is that motivates him. Why does he do the things that he do? Even at the fifth movie, I still don't know why he does what he does. Yeah,
he does have the constant refrain of where he has a constant refrain of saying that he felt he had no choice. And so then it becomes, well, anytime he has a feeling of choice or a sense of agency, he chooses to not do it anymore. He chooses either to run away with the woman that he's in love with or to live in solitude.
Yeah, and inaction for an action movie is not a great motivating factor. The hero that would rather just not do anything.
Exactly. I just want to sit and chill. Just, I'm going to eat some Cheerios.
It was a strange choice. I mean, this is nothing against Daniel Craig, who's doing what he was sent there to do, but that does seem to be this underlying, like, world weariness through all five movies, where it's like, oh, all right.
There is. So then,
whereas you don't get that with like Dom in Fast and Furious. Like, no, getting older, has a family, stuff, but never has that like, oh, I have to drive again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's always getting behind the wheel. Yes,
exactly. He's always getting behind the wheel.
He's always getting behind the wheel. He's right. So it's not the car, it's the driver.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. Yes. And so then now that we've gone to the heavier James Bond to the guilt, right? Now we're pivoting and moving, and James is now pivoting and moving more towards the action adventure part of the movie, where he's now.
And so I would say, and this is the point where the movie actually gets good.
Okay, got it. So when he now,
it was like a lot of exposition and setup to finally get to like, oh, good, some James Bond action. That's nice.
Right, exactly. So now he's going to go, and
nothing against the bridge scene, which was good, but like,
well, the bridge
still had that weird moral ambivalence.
Yeah, the bridge scene was great. So I liked it a lot. So so then he's back. So now, then he has now found out that the new villain Safin has, whose first name I am going to mispronounce, but I think Lucifer, which is an interesting choice. Lucifer Safin is he's now,
because I honestly, until you said that, I thought his first name actually was Lucifer.
Yeah,
but I suppose that's what they're trying for.
I think that's what they're trying for. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's Lucifer. which is
Lucifer.
yeah, which is an interesting choice to be sure. All right,
Yeah.
so but okay, so now they found out about Lucifer, and so he's now found out that's who's taking down Spectre, and he's modified the drug and found out all this, right? And is that then when you say this is where it starts to get good? Is because this is now the point where he then talks to Blofeld. Christoph Waltz has his Christoph Waltzes it up a bit. Right, and then
Sure. If you're gonna get Christoph Waltz, you want the full Christoph Waltz.
No, and he was great. I actually, he was great. Rami Malek was great. I mean, they're great actors in this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he goes there and has that, and so goes and visits his adopted brother, inadvertently kills him, and then they go to Norway, where exactly. He goes back to Norway, where then he finds out about his child. Right now
yes. Well, but before we go too far though, don't skip over my favorite character in the movie.
Okay,
which is Ana de Armas as Paloma in Cuba.
Yes, that was the part where
she was my favorite character in the entire movie. Yes. I want that's who I want to follow from now on. Leave 007 in the dirt. Just from now on, that's the story I want. Well, because she's the first person in this movie who seemed to be enjoying herself. She's like, this is cool. Like, I get to be a spy and dress up and shoot people and gadgets. This is amazing. To see that enthusiasm and have James Bond with her next to her going, oh, yeah, we do get to get dressed up and shoot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So,
and also completely immune to his charms, which I liked as well. Like, she was not at all like, oh, James. She was just like, oh, what do we do now? Like, where are we going to go?
Yeah. Yes. No, I agree with that. I think that she is great in the movie. And I think that I definitely want to spend a bit more time talking about her character arc and what that character I think means or represents as an overall theme of it as well. But so I guess to start with, yes, she was awesome. She was amazing. The fight scene, the choreography, that was great, and her character was very interesting and I think in a lot of ways unique in all the James Bond movies and in a good way, right? Unique and different in a good way, as opposed to comparing and contrast to where we're unique and different here in that James Bond is feeling melancholy and sad the whole time, and then he's now moving on to try to then rekindle his relationship with Madeline, because he now forgives her because he understands now because Blofeld just says what Blofeld says, which is all of your pain is because of me, right? So now he's like, oh, so it wasn't her, it was him. So now I'm going to now try to reconcile with her. And then I meet this little girl who seems age appropriate. And, and was like, when I saw you last, you didn't have a daughter, and that would have come up. So maybe this is mine. Right. And so, and even part of the reactions of that, right, where he seems to react kind of like, surprised the guy would, like, oh, okay, I'm a father now, right? And then he's told that he's not, and he seems to honestly have a sigh of relief to it, right? Where I think that he wants to just be like, okay, he understands the responsibility of the child, but really all he wants is just to either hang out and do nothing or just hang out with Madeline, right? And then just, live a life of, leisure and travel and go places, right? And so then in this pivot of the movie, then, and I'm curious about your reaction, then did you feel that this added to anything as far as the layers of him or the part of his reasons for being things, right? He thinks he's this girl's father and he thinks he now has his responsibility. And so when he meets her, he tries to, as much as he can, tries to somewhat bond with her for a little bit before, of course, they're, kidnapped because, that's what happens in these movies, right? So, but at least for me, I didn't necessarily find that I got what they were going for, but I just didn't find that it added anything to as far as what he was doing, because it just seemed to be like he was taking on the responsibility because he felt he was supposed to, not because it was what he didn't have like some change of heart or anything.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about there. I think what it added mostly was tension. Because I can tell you, I went to see this with my wife. She's not the biggest James Bond fan, but she does like a big action movie. And so she went, and she didn't even remember if she'd seen the last two. So obviously it did not stick with her. But she was excited about this and wanted to go see it and stuff too. And I can tell you that when they take a child and put that child into an action sequence, that activates the mama bear gene. because she was gripping my arm so hard through that chase scene with they put a child in a car seat, mama's with her and stuff too, but there's still cars flipping around and gunfire and all that kind of stuff. It was like raising the hackles on the back of her neck. Like she was really, really uncomfortable with that kind of
so
stuff.
It raises the stakes having the kid.
Yeah, it does raise the stakes. So having the child, putting it in there, I think raises the stakes up and makes it so that there's an extra level of tension through all of that stuff, and all the way through even when they get to the villain's evil lair. There's having a child there because we know James is going to be fine. I mean, the girl was probably I know, but that's the formula. Like you were talking about, the James Bond formula is he'll be fine. Like so he'll get shot in the shoulder or the knee, and it'll be fine. And then the girl will probably die because when you sleep with James Bond, it's a death sentence.
That's what happens.
Yeah, but that's the formula, right?
Exactly. You make it to the credits and you die.
So, but having that kid in there is an X factor we have not seen before in James Bond, and it raises the tension and makes it so okay, we're in unfamiliar territory here, and I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, I can see that, and that did maybe potentially help out some with the movie. But then moving forward from there, I find that I guess this is where I have a weird pivot point, right? But I'll stick with James Bond and kind of what he's doing from there. So they get kidnapped, so Madeline and the child get kidnapped, as you do.
Sure, as you do.
As you do. And then
great action sequence. Another great action sequence in the woods.
In the woods, yes. No, that was a really good action sequence. And then he, killed Morgan Ash, which was the CIA sidekick.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Another one of those oh yeah, that guy.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah. That guy killed.
Another plot thread just whoosh.
Exactly. Yeah,
right
just gonna kill him. Yeah. And move on. Yeah. So so it was really great sequence there as well. And then, they move forward to the penultimate scene, right? Where they find out where the lair is, and then they discover what Safran's plan is to do is to kill all the people. And then he goes and he goes to rescue them, right? James Bond goes and goes rescue them. And they're going to stop. He
goes to the poison garden.
Exactly. He goes to the poison garden to stop them and to stop Safran from his plan, rescue his girlfriend and kid, right? Rescue them, and then you think.
Would you say it's his baby mama?
I believe that's 100% accurate. Yeah, he's rescuing his baby mama and his baby. So his baby. Yeah. So it's all good. So he's going to go rescue them, and then as you would expect, then he was going to go, and then all right, he's going to go, he's going to rescue them, and then he's going to move on, right? And so here, though, he has, I think, 2 or 3 things. I think there's a couple things that happen, right? So, jump to the end.
Is one of those things that the movie starts to fall apart? Because that's how I feel. Okay, I feel like the movie's been poisoned by the poison garden.
So then, how about let's explore that for a second before I move on to my just say why is this the point where you feel the movie's starting to fall apart?
Getting there is fine. And I loved seeing 007 and 007 going side by side and working together, because we've never really seen that before, especially in the Daniel Craig series. Working with another agent of a similar skill set and working together and commands and throwing weapons back and forth, that kind of stuff. That was great. And even getting there in the plane and which turns into a sub, and all great.
Yeah.
But when we get to pure supervillain time, that is when I feel like I am lost. And I'm sure we'll get to talk about the supervillain plans, but I was sort of with them all the way along, even the weirdness of the opening sequence and how Rami Malek looks exactly the same.
Yes.
15 years later.
At least 15.
Never explained. At least 15, if not more.
At least 15.
I haven't done the math exactly of what her age is, but maybe 20 years or whatever, but it looks exactly the same.
I just go under the assumption that while she's clearly younger than James, I just go with this. She's 30. Right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And so she's 30, and the first scene happens. She's 10. 10. That's 20 years.
20 years.
And he looks exactly the same.
Yeah. Man, that's some good genes, Rami.
It sure is. I mean, yeah. He had a mild skin condition, but other than that,
yeah, exactly. Must have stopped the aging process too, because
it looks the same.
So when you start to understand sort of what's going on there, and it's okay, so his family was killed by Spectre. He was the last survivor, so he dedicated his life to destroying Spectre. And you go, oh, okay, that's interesting, because he and James are sort of in a line. When he talks about we're the same, it was oh yeah, at that point you are. You both have a similar goal. You could have even teamed up at one point, and to help take and he's really good at it. Like he does it. He actually he does what James Bond hasn't been able to do in the last 4 movies or whatever. He takes down Spectre.
He does.
So, and at that point you're like, wow, okay, way to go, guy, high five. And then it takes a turn, and I don't understand, because the turn seems to happen off screen. Because by the time we actually get to have a sit down with him, he's gone full on Doctor Doom, and I don't know why. Like, it starts from I hate these guys. I'm gonna take revenge. I'm gonna kill them all. Done. Now everybody's gotta die. What? Wait. Hold on. Wait. Why? Like what? What? That was where it completely lost me, because he's monologuing and doing all of the stuff a supervillain does, but what do you want? What? Like, all the people you hated are dead, and you did it. You decide to take a specific super weapon designed to kill a specific person or type people, and decide to turn it into what every disease is. Yes. I don't understand why this one is so much better, because you could also drop a nuke and do the same thing. Because my wife and I debated this all the way home, because I said this is where the movie completely lost me, because why does he want to just kill random people? Because if the thing is, they're trying to play both sides. The filmmakers are trying to play both sides. They're trying to be like, oh, he's a super evil guy, so therefore you need to be on James's side, that James is going to kill him. But they don't want to say the word genocide, because that's what he wants to do.
It is what he wants to do. Yes.
But why? Because we see flat out racism from the scientist, out of nowhere, but we'd have no idea. What ethnicity does he not like? What? Why are you so mad at people in Central Europe, which is apparently where you're going to set stuff up? Is that what it is? Is it because you're maybe Japanese? Because they even kind of allude to that in the mask and the stuff in the Zen garden and stuff too. What is your nationality? Who do you hate and why? Tell me. It's a 3-hour movie,
yeah.
And you have a lot of really long monologues for Rami to say. At some point, put in there, and that's why I hate the Koreans. And you go, oh, okay, now I get it. You took a specific weapon designed to kill individual people, which is amazing and deadly and terrifying, and you made it into just another thing that kills a bunch of people. Wow, good job. There's my rant. You had yours at the start. I had mine in the middle. All you.
Let's put a pin in James and pivot around to Lucifer Safin. Lucifer Safin. So here's the thing that I think with him as well, right? So thematically with him, I had the exact same issue, right? So you really just well stated all of the things as far as the reasons and everything he did, right? There was really a couple things though that I also didn't understand as well with him. Was he had this attachment to Madeline for reasons I didn't, just because he saved her life, right? And also here's where part of his character arc as well, I thought, where they missed some things were missed with him, was that relationship, right? Because when he revisits Madeline in her doctor's office, right? At this point, when they have that whole conversation, you as the viewer think Madeline knows who he is, right? And it isn't until the end you're like, wait, you don't know who that was? Because I thought maybe he helped raise her or something, right?
Right, because we don't know.
Because we don't know. Because
it ends with him in the ice, standing over her in the ice, and that's it.
Right, and clearly he pulls her out because she's alive,
right?
And so all that, right? But then that's it. And so then it's oh wait, so you don't know who this person is. You haven't seen them, and you don't, so now because of that part of that non-attachment of she doesn't know who he is. They didn't, he didn't raise her or anything like that. His attachment to her then seems to be just to drive the plot forward, right? There's no other real reason for that, right? And so, and I think that, because, and to me, that is also everything you described to alongside with that, everything you described too is to me part of what I found vexing and confusing about that character of Lucifer Safin, right? Because you really hit the nail on the head. Why is he doing this? Why has he just decided to, okay, everybody must die? Okay, yeah, but so that confusion, the head scratching, then makes it where then does it it's a big evil thing, sure, but then is there any satisfaction then derived from that when James Bond finally then stops him, right? Or do you feel, or does everything feel more like, well, you can't let him kill the world, so we might as well stop him, right?
Right, exactly.
So,
as Matt Fraction says, because the genre demands it. Like, why are we in a big super villain layer? Because the genre demands it. Like, why? If he already has the ultimate weapon, which he now has, why does he still have people making poison?
Yeah.
There shouldn't, it would have been, we would have lost a lot of great action, but like to have James show up and it's just him. Because you don't need employees at this point, because all like your stupid nanobots are going to do all the job there. Why are you having anybody making acid anymore? Like, why are you having anybody in the labs? They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
That dude could go and hang out in James's abandoned place in Jamaica with a good satellite uplink and do the same job, because all he's doing is typing.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. So.
But because it's a James Bond movie, it has to be in a supervillain layer. There has to be henchmen for him to kill, and there has to be like the big supervillain monologue, where James can't just kill him, because if James like came out and there he was sitting there, he'd just shoot him. But no, you have to have it that there's guys around, and anything that if he throws the pillow, like, oh.
Oh, that's because the daughter was still there. Well, right. James did.
And once again, raising the stakes, raising the tension.
Yes, but also to be fair, James did try to shoot him.
He did.
Right. He just got
good on you, James.
Right. He did try to shoot him. Like, and that's part of where the daughter was like, yeah, maybe raise the stakes for the audience members. But James was like, look, I just met this girl. So
the world, the girl.
That girl I know for 5 minutes, who I've been told is not mine.
That's right.
And the world, I'm gonna shoot, right? So that's what he did, because he didn't know what would happen when he shot at him. That why he would hide her. That Safin's reaction would be to just run and hide for some reason with him, and not harm the girl in any way. Like he had no way of knowing that. So,
and speaking of bizarre motivations. Then when they go down there and the girl doesn't want to go with him, he's like, well, then you can go back to your mom. And she's like, okay. And she leaves. I'm like, wait, hold on. Yeah. Like, you transferred your bizarre attachment to the mother, which we still don't understand why, over to the daughter. And then as soon as she bites your hand, you're like, now you're dead to me.
Yes, exactly.
He just gives up. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well.
It's the island of bizarre motivation.
It is. There is not a lot to. So I think that is really just of a piece of it. And I think we're finding that we're getting a similar opinion here of this, where the movie, and I want to give this one caveat of positivity, well done, right? There's a lot of good action stuff here and everything's well done, is confusing, and therefore it create situations that don't make sense. It's confusing. There's a bit of a, and it makes it where you have a little too much of, well, we're doing this just cause, right? And
exactly. Because we're caught in the gears of the plot, exactly. And so we must move in this direction.
Yes, we're here just cause.
Not because of character, but because this is where the movie is going, and so let's all go in the same direction.
And so since we're at the point before, because I want to,
we're at the apex now. So I will say. But before we get into the final, the one thing that actually had a emotional reaction for me is when they're running through the building and the girl comes out from under the table, and she's like reconnects with her mom. It was like, it was like the catharsis. It was that all that stuff is done, and I had a genuine emotional oh my god, like it was a real. And I'm like, wow, in a James Bond movie, I don't think I've ever had any emotional reaction other than like I was really had a genuine emotion, like, oh good, the kid's safe. Woo. So it wasn't at the end thing, it was that part. I did not
have that reaction at all.
Yeah. So, I know, it's like the weird emotional thing. You never know where it's gonna come from. And all of a sudden I'm awesome. Like, oh, I genuinely am like pleased and like welling up a little bit, like, oh, okay. But then then he puts them on a boat. He puts them on a boat and off they go, and then it just becomes James versus the supervillain.
It does. And so, and here's, I guess I want to put a button in James, because there's a couple of things other characters I want to talk about before we wrap up. But So this is my take or understanding on what the sacrifice he makes at the end, right? So he you know, he and Safin
If you've come this far and you don't know that James Bond dies, then I just spoiled it for
this
you.
Is you look, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movie, this is the wrong show.
Yeah,
so
but you know, you're still welcome.
We're gonna get to the end. I mean,
it's strange, but
we'll take a while to get there. But yeah, we're gonna we're gonna make it. So okay, so we're at the end, all right, and so he has the penultimate fight, and he gets the nanobots on him that. Because Safin made nanobots that would kill Madeline and kill Eminem for whatever reason, and
because
just because to drive the plot, and that of course in the fight gets that those bots get all over James and Safin, so now James cannot be with them again. So the penultimate part of it, of course, is when they're going to have the missiles to blow up the island to destroy everything, to truly stop the bad guy, because you have to blow the whole thing up to do that, which makes some sense in this case.
Right. Which, so, by the way, having him infected with the nanobots is the perfect way to get him back into the 00 program. It's the strangest plot thing that they put in there, because they put it in as this is the motivation for him to die. He can never be with the woman that he loves and the child that he now has learned is his. Oh, how awful. I could surely just die. Or you could go back to work, because all the things that have kept you from being a 00 agent are now gone. They have because of what he gives you, basically the only thing that's going to ever hurt are them. So you can just pretend to die, go back to work at 00, and just live the rest of your life as a great agent and help the rest of the world. You don't have to die just because you don't get to be with the one you love. You could help other people. You could be selfless. You could go and go back to work doing the thing that the country paid for you to be able to do, and you're really good at.
Well, here we are, Carl, where you jumped ahead of the point I was about to
make. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But it was the one thing. I'm like, oh, clearly that's where they're going, because I mean, it's so obvious. But oh no, they're doing I can't be with the one I love, so I should die.
Yes, because I should die, because I'm not going to then make it out to then do they did the bay doors to give you a little bit of plausibility, but even then it's like, I've seen enough James Bond, he could have made it out of there, right? James Bond's been in tougher situations. He'd have made that run. And so, yeah, so then, yes. And so I honestly think you probably have already answered my questions. So instead of asking it and having you repeat everything you just said, let's talk about
the death of James Bond.
No. Let's just. You already answered the questions. I think you already said.
I did, but however, I have had some of my friends who have seen this are very angry about this.
About him
very
dying?
How dare you kill James Bond? How dare you? I mean, a lot of pearl clutching has been going on amongst my friends.
We can
so I would like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about seeing James Bond die on screen? And how they did it, and also the fact that they did
it. Here's okay. So here's my take, which is going to be very different from your friends. I am fine with it. I actually think it was a good thing, because I didn't see James Bond die on screen. I saw this dude that's been playing this character that they call James Bond die on screen. James Bond didn't die on screen.
You know what? Right? I walked right into that one.
Yeah,
I opened the door. You were right there.
Right, and so honestly, what I think they did, which I was curious going in how they're going to get out of this pickle, and I think they did a good job of getting out of this particular pickle. Was they've made something different that is not James Bond. So now that they've decided that Daniel Craig, the actor, is no longer going to do this anymore, how do you just plug someone else in, like a new actor in, and keep going and saying that this new actor had all these experiences Daniel Craig's character had? Or are you now forced to reboot the whole thing again and go back to you're basically making Casino Royale 4, right? Or whatever, you're going back to it, or you can I don't know, just go to the old formula that they had before, right? So I found that what I don't like about these movies is apparently I am a James Bond purist. I saw this in a review that purists may not be happy with these movies, and that is me. I've never thought of myself as a purist, but apparently I am. So I'm gonna own my stuff with this.
You're among friends.
Exactly. I'm gonna own it there. All right. Now, so what they did was by killing him, allowed the whatever the next movie is to have a choice. They can reboot, right? They can go home to the way and reboot and go that route, or they can return to form, right? Because you could pick, let's say Idris Elba, who'd be awesome. You could throw Idris Elba in, and if you start making the old formulaic movies, the what James Bond really, the actual James Bond movies, what they really are, you could throw Idris Elba in. He's mid-career, go, right? It's totally fine. You don't have to explain anything. If he's alive, maybe you do, right? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Him being alive at the end would create problems of, well, what do you do with the fact that he's alive? And so what I think they did is that they realized, hey, we have Jeffrey Wright here. So these 5 movies have just been one big, long James Bond what if.
Well, I mean, aren't all James Bond actors, aren't they all in parallel dimensions?
No.
If you want to get metaphysical about it?
No, it's all just a continuation.
You think it's the same guy?
Yeah. He just keep going on. Yeah. Because he doesn't age
until Daniel Craig.
That's different. They went continuum.
How do you explain the original Casino Royale with Sir David Niven?
Exactly. So it's just I don't worry about it. So that's James Bond.
So you're going with the 007 Time Lord theory, where he just regenerates.
He just regenerates. It's fine. It doesn't matter,
okay.
Right?
Okay.
He just goes on and does whatever he does, right? And so I don't think that. I mean, to me, I do believe you can sit down and really start thinking hard about that question and about those things, about what it is. Is he regenerating? Is it a different person every time? What are they doing when they change actors? Blah blah blah. Right? But at the end of the day, I'm not going for that. Right? You're going for, if I want a good tight continuum, continuity, which is words that are really hard to say sometimes when you say it out loud. If I want any of that, I'm going to go to, I have 2 sources now, Star Trek and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Other than that, I'm like, just, with these James Bond ones, it's more like, hey, this is action entertainment of a formula of a thing that I like, and I want to see that thing. Right. So they can just swap in the actors, swap them in and out and everything. You have a new James Bond. He has a new adventure. You just set the problems in modern times, because I think in the early 60s ones, he's dealing with NASA and the space program. So that's not going to work now. Right. And so you just, you create a new problem, but then it's just, you're in it for the entertainment of what it is. It is a cool guy who's, driving these fast cars. He has these nice gadgets. He's, playing whatever card game, used to be Baccarat, and it could be Hold'em now. Who cares? Whatever card game, he's eating at the fancy places. He's living a rich life, and in the meantime, he gets to periodically save the world. That's what we're in for. That's what we want to see, and that's what these movies did not give us. Right? They gave us something else, and so, but circling all that back around, killing him was good. It creates a freedom to then go back to form.
Okay. I agree. I mean, I think killing him, was great in terms of, we've never seen that before. We actually got to see James Bond die, essentially, there's no way of getting out of that, and everybody mourned him. It was clear that was the thing. But I also saw it as a gesture of respect from the Broccoli's to Daniel Craig for all the stuff he had done. He's the only James Bond actor who ever got to die as James Bond. That there is a definitive ending to his run. None of the other ones, they just stopped doing it, and then somebody else just suddenly picks up the gun and straightens their tie and off they go. But this, like you're saying, stops. So then whenever they do next, it is not the same guy. Whoever they have as the next James Bond, and we're going to find that out, in 6 months or whatever. And my prediction is a white middle-aged British dude.
So not
because the Broccoli's, I don't think the Broccoli's are interested in doing anything different or at all. So we'll see. Would Idris Elba be great? Yes. Would he be a fool to take the role? Also, yes, because I think it would do serious harm to his career, because he's going great places, and I think James Bond would just basically take him out of circulation for 5 years, and all he would get is people just ugh. The people making podcasts about how terrible James Bond his run as James Bond were.
Well, maybe.
That's how I saw it. I thought it was great because I was genuinely surprised in a film series that does not deliver a lot of surprises. One thing I will give No Time to Die is it genuinely surprised me multiple times.
So you were surprised that he died?
Yes, because I thought that when they did the nanobots on him, I thought, oh, there it is. That's how they get him back into the service.
Oh, okay.
Like I thought they would do the big explosion and then like the weeping, and then it would be like her and the girl standing over his grave, like James, and then like they pull back and there's M and him under an umbrella, like I could never be with them, but I can be with you, M. Let's go kill some foreigners. Like, okay. I mean, I really thought that was the way of them. Like, wow. James Bond adventures continue. You just don't get to see them anymore.
Oh, yeah. No, okay. I can see that then. I never thought that. The second the M&M left and he had 007 take the other take M&M out. At that point, I was like, oh, well, they've all left the place. And I was like, he's not leaving. He's not. It's a one-way trip for him. Right. And so, yes, I just assumed he was going to die.
Because I never thought they would be that adventurous in filmmaking.
Well, I guess to me,
because like you were saying, there's a formula, and I thought they would just follow the formula.
Well, they're not. They've been breaking the formula to this point, and also they have the thing where he, they already knew he wasn't coming back, right? If they killed him where people thought he was coming back, well, now we've got something. But you knew he wasn't coming back, so you might as well kill him, and then that way that you can, let whoever takes the mantle do something else, because this is not, they've made a encapsulated 5-movie story. Right. And so, so that you've made a story where your hero he dies at the end. So, I wasn't surprised. I would have been surprised had he lived, because I think part of that was because the motivation that you are attributing to him that now is the perfect way for him to get back to everything that clearly he doesn't have.
Well, as we talked about,
he never
he left as soon as he broke up with her. Yeah, true.
He never did.
Very true.
He didn't have it in Casino Royale. He quit in every movie except Quantum of Solace. He quit. Right. So.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, assuming because Spectre, he quit at the end of Spectre, although you didn't realize that's what was happening, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So So he quit at the end of every movie except for Quantum of Solace. Yeah. So I guess though, but one other thing I wanted to touch on, since we've now really heavily dissected James Bond and to some degree Lucifer Safin. Let's talk about Paloma. Anna de Armas, right? So
okay,
her character.
Actually, we can just expand this out to just talk about the supporting cast entirely.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I was going to start with her.
I don't know how long you want the show to go.
Yes.
You might want to make it a little more freewheeling, just because I know people want to get on with their lives.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, we're doing this podcast.
Okay.
Look, James Bond.
Buckle in.
Look, No Time to Die was 2 hours and 43 minutes. I think I hear that number and I think challenge accepted.
We're going for 244.
Exactly. Woo-hoo. So,
and the thing is, the people who are listening to this already know exactly how long it is, but we don't.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So,
no time to pause.
Wow. All right. So Paloma, all right, who I thought was great in it, and a great addition and idea of James Bond, where it was I don't know if this is a first, because Michelle Yeoh's character really kind of does this as well in the goodness, the world is not Tomorrow Never Dies, where he meets up with an agent. Now, the uniqueness with her was that she, in 15 minutes, goes from really, which we found out is acting, as if she's new, has no idea what's going on. I've been here for 3 weeks. Oh my goodness, I'm super Star Trek. Hey, Mr. Bond, you're amazing, right? To no, I am also a total badass and can handle myself in all these situations, and I'm going to then fight these people hand to hand, and then I'm going to shoot them and kill them, and figure everything out and actually be an asset to the mission. And so I think that not only that short arc of everything, but then also the fact that the fact that yes, I liked she was she's pretty much an equal with him, right? That it wasn't at no point in time did he really have to save her. Right. That,
right.
Not and save her in that damsel in distress mode. There's a couple times where maybe someone else had the drop on him and he shot that person, and vice versa happens. But that's all action movies, right? That's
just buddy cop stuff.
Exactly. That's all just buddy cop, normal fare, right? So and even at the end, it was a, hey, this was fun. If you're ever back in Cuba, maybe we'll go have a, what are they going to go to, a cigar for? No, they got a cigar for Felix. They got a cigar for Felix. But they were going to go like have a drink at a bar or something like that if you ever come back in town, right? And then that was it. And so I found that to be an interesting interaction. Not only A, that they've had that type of a character, but B, that in the James Bond universe here, that character is female. Right. Mm-hmm. And so so for me personally, I did find not only the performance and everything in the story was great with it, but that it was very refreshing to be, hey, this is basically a platonic relationship. That's platonic both ways. Right. And so,
there was no element of Nikolovna on the top. I mean, like none of that sort of like wink, wink, James Bond flirty. Exactly. It was just like, no, they're both professionals here to do their job.
Yeah, exactly. And the same could be same for the new 007, which was also female, where she started with the flirtiness, which I thought was an interesting twist, where when she first meets him, she starts flirting with him and everything to get him think that's what's going to happen.
Right, because he brings her right into his house. Exactly. Like the same way that James has talked his way into all these secure areas. Well,
exactly.
She's like in the middle of your room, man.
Yeah.
Like
exactly. Yeah. She talked her way in. She used the hint of like something would happen here to get what you wanted, and then turned and said, hey, this is the deal. If you get in my way, I'll kill you. Right. And that was,
and also like, oh, now I've seen this. Yeah. Not impressed.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of amazing that they took the amount of time and energy to develop the secondary characters when they're just going to disappear. I guess maybe I'm just too Marvel at this point. Like when a character pops, I kind of think, oh, they should do a spinoff. They should do a series. They should do but like all these characters that they spent all this time developing, Moneypenny and M was actually more interesting in this than he has been in previous ones, and the 007 and her, and they're all gone. Like, it's just like, why did you spend all this time and energy making me like these people when you're just going to erase them from history because James Bond's about to reboot, you know? But at the same time, also a good job at filmmaking because you made me like the characters. So this is the interconnected metaverse is to saturate into my head now.
It is. Well, and they could do the one step further, which would then be where James Bond purists like myself would say, okay, well now we've gone a whole different way. This is a whole different movie. I need to appreciate it on different terms. Is carrying that through line, right? Allowing Lashana Lynch, that actress that played the 007 Nomi, to be the next 007. And then they could just stay in this universe and move forward, right? So
and just be like 007.
The 007, right.
James Bond.
Instead of James Bond, right. Well, right, exactly. And so, and do it that way. But, I don't think I don't think they can do that with the rights. I think 007 has to be named James Bond with the rights and everything. But they could do that.
Well, I think so. I mean, if to keep that character, yeah. I mean, in the same way that like there's a Pennyworth television series about the early adventures of Batman's butler. I don't see why they can't go and have Moneypenny have her own thing. Moneypenny and Q and 007. Like, why can't that be a thing?
Yeah, it could be they have to change the 00 status. She has to be 00 something else.
Yeah, exactly.
002 or 003 or whatever. Yeah. Just some of them.
Well, I've heard 006 is available.
It is, but that's 006 turns evil every time. So,
well,
yeah, exactly.
There's the story.
Yeah. So, but I think though that the one thing that I guess I wanted to bring up that I thought was interesting in the fully rounding of Nomi as a character was that not only was she this, so she's clearly confident woman that had to then fight and do various things, and obviously had to have her 2 kills to get to become a 00 and everything, and do everything it took to get there, but then still had this awkward insecurity about the number, right? And that in essence she was. It was a welcome change for the supporting characters of, well, she's really kind of a tough, hard as nails, able to do everything, all the stuff that you're going to do as a 00. But then being able to be a fully formed human person with this insecurity that you kind of relate to, where you're kind of like, if I'm 007 and will 00 what? Which I get, and it's like, yeah. So I found that to be an interesting, very nice touch of the movie and of the arc of that character, to say, hey, you know what? She's great, just not perfect. She has this thing that, That's a weird thing that any one of us understands would have.
There's a couple of different ways they could have gone with that, and I think they made the good choice, because it could have been that she is by the book exactly what M wants, like that she like oh, I don't go out, I don't disobey, and like I do what I'm told, like I am a weapon of the state, and they do that. Or they also could have been her sabotaging him along the way of like, I'm the new guard, you're the old guard, go back to bed, Grandpa. But they didn't do that either. It's like all these things that could have easily have done, have we've seen a bunch of times. They steered away from them, which, as we know, James Bond is not big away from steering away from the cliches.
Well, no, not the good James Bond movies anyway. Those all have cliche. Tons of cliche. All right. So, okay. So then, overall, so let's just talk about this. So then, overall, given the bar that you said earlier, right? Was this movie below? Did it meet? Did it exceed the expectations that you had going in?
It pretty much was exactly what I thought it was going to be. I mean, like I said, I was pleased that it varied for a couple of things, and it surprised me a couple of times. But I basically am pleased that it didn't disappoint me. So going in, I was sort of like, there's a couple of I thought Quantum of Solace was hot garbage. Like, I mean, I thought it was like that seems like fan fiction and not even good fan fiction. And I've seen like the Daniel Craig ones sort of get to a certain point and they just kind of go, good enough. And this one too. So I actually thought that the fact they took the time to take some chances to do some different stuff was pretty good. So I was pleased that I wasn't disappointed by it.
Okay, so nice. Well,
which is faint praise.
That is very faint praise. So
what about you?
Then okay, so then for me, AL, before I say that, on rewatch, Quantum of Solace actually isn't that bad, especially if you watch it in Casino Royale back to back and you recognize it's one movie. Right. If you watch Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace and realize it's one movie, Quantum of Solace isn't that bad. Right. Also, it does have the better theme song. So, So, anyway, so for me, given my expectations and everything going into it, I did not expect to like this movie, and I liked it less than I expected. I think that it had two major problems going to. One, I already kind of understood that this version of James Bond he's just not for me. Right. And so I already knew that, like, okay, going into it, I expected, all right, well, they're going to do some stuff with this character that I'm not going to like, and I didn't like. And then also I didn't like that I realized more and more, especially since I watched the other four on the really soon before, I didn't like that he just seems to be like, yes, I'm forced to do this. Right. And so therefore, I don't want to do this, and I want to just do nothing, right? So I'm already not liking that. They doubled and tripled down on that. They also doubled and tripled down on the whole. If you hadn't seen the other movies, this movie I don't think makes sense, right? I would be very curious about someone that only came in and saw this one. Like, do you even understand what any of this stuff is going on, right? Because if you think about it too, if this was your first one. You came in and watched, Ian Fleming's, Daniel Craig is Ian Fleming's 007, James Bond, right? And he's at the beginning of the movie, not James Bond. He's retired, right? Yeah, so right. It's like he's starting off with like, okay, well, I thought I was going to see an action spy movie, and I'm seeing a dude is retired.
Yeah, and they make such a big deal of him falling in love with like this particular woman, and I was like, as I was starting watching the movie, I'm like, I don't remember you. Like, what? Like, I know you were in a previous movie, but like, I don't remember what your history was, what your deal was. Like, at least with Vesper, you kind of got that they were, if not a perfect match, and like equally thing, that she also had a lot of other stuff going on, that she was really intelligent and knew this world and stuff too, and they were a much better pair. I mean, like I'm sounding like we're getting into like Friends territory here. Like, I don't like Ross and Rachel. I think that Ross, but they were a much better pair. Like, if you had to pick one person to be like James Bond's going to give up everything for and live off, like, you kind of go, her, really?
Yeah, no, you very much do. And I felt the same way with the Vesper Lind one. Even though at the time I was like, well, they're going to figure out a way to bring her back, right? Which they did by killing her.
That was my thought too. If they found a way to bring her back, then the emotional stakes would have been so much higher. because you're like, oh, it's her. Like, it's the one he was willing to throw everything away for.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to like the latest one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying, because Vesperlin did make more, even in the movie when I saw it time, it made more sense. I got where he was going with it. And so, but yeah, anyway, so that part was bad. I think we've already addressed that. For me, what made it worse was the bad villain, right? And so I judge a lot of these movies by the villain, and when the villain does what I consider stupid things that get him to where he loses, I don't like, right? Because you have someone who basically he took down Spectre and has all this power and can actually do everything he wanted to do if he doesn't kidnap, Madeline Matilda, so Eminem. If he doesn't kidnap them, nothing gets in his way, right? And then when he kidnaps them, he does it for no real apparent reason. And he seems to have no motivation for why he wants to kill everybody. But either way, he basically ends up losing this stuff because he makes these stupid decisions that have no meaning and no fruit. They don't matter in any single way, not only to the movie as a whole, but they're just there as service to the plot and nothing else. And so when the villain is horrible too, if I don't like the villain or the hero, well then, I mean, this is just hot garbage.
Yeah, it's interesting just because there's some movies obviously that have made deep impressions on my brain, and one of them, of course, is Iron Man 2, because I spent 150 episodes talking about it. But I see the Rami Malek as being the same as Whiplash from Iron Man 2. Like, he said he had a beef, set a goal, accomplished that goal, and then through the back half of the movie he goes, I don't know. what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What is your motivation? What is your plan? Yeah. Like I'm with you, like all the way through. Like, you had a legitimate thing. You accomplished the thing you set out to do. You made God bleed. Yeah. Yes. And then the second half, you kind of go, I don't know, big robot suit, fight a guy. It all gets weird and nebulous about a thing, and the same thing happens here.
Exactly. So, well, all right. So then I guess neither one of us were giant fans of this movie. So, no. But in keeping with the letterbox themes, what would you rate this movie out of 1 to 5 stars?
I think 3 stars.
3 stars. Mm-hmm. With or without a heart?
Without a heart.
Without a heart. No heart. No love. No heart. For you.
No. But I would say of the 5 James Bond, Daniel Craig movies, I don't think I would give a heart to any of them.
Not even Casino Royale?
Not even Casino Royale. I started watching Casino Royale again, and there's some stuff in there that just really irks me.
Okay. Let's say. I mean, I got problems with Casino Royale, but I can defend that.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's a different conversation, and we've gone on long about this one. But like, there's some stuff in there that I enjoyed it. I liked what they did, but there's a couple of big plot points that I'm like, ugh, that's just sad storytelling. Also, a defibrillator doesn't fix poison. But go ahead.
Wow.
Still poisoned. Just electrocuted now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay.
I know. It was just a throwaway thing. Don't get too bogged down in
your bait, sir. I'm just going to stick with this movie for now and say, hey, you liked it exactly twice as much as me. I'm giving this 1.5 stars. No heart. It was honestly,
for me. It was the strength of the acting is what Bowie did. That's what brought it up too, because everyone was so on top of their game in terms of their performances. Not one person in this was I like, ugh. Even Rami, with basically given a lot of garbage to deal with, he did a great job of it.
Yeah. It was great. You know what? You're right. I'll give it 2 stars.
Oh, look at that! I brought him up
you
half
brought
a star.
Me up half a star. Yeah, the acting, all the acting was great. The performance was great. The fault of this movie is, to me, in the story, not in the execution. Right.
Agreed.
Even the action sequences are great. There's a lot.
Action sequences are amazing.
There's a lot here. There's a lot here.
Yeah. One of those stars is dedicated just to the action sequences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot here like in those veins. But then the second you start to think about it, and the problem with this movie too is it's so long. You're thinking about it as it's going on. It gets crazy, and you're like, all right. Thank you so much, Kyle Olson.
This was fun. I'd say I thank you, guys. Thank you, audience, for staying around with us for so long as we took this long and winding road. But for this movie, it kind of needed a long and winding discussion.
It very much did. I think because it was a long and winding movie, and really, I feel it's a culmination of 5 movies. And it's kind of like you really have to talk about all 5 in order to make sense of it, which then goes back to my problems. But all right. So, but thank you so much for joining me tonight to talk about No Time to Die.
It was a pleasure to be here.
We, the not so humble hosts of the Film Board, want to talk to you. Please join our online community with fellow movie lovers. Learn more at thenextreel.com/discord. And again, if you're not already a member, please consider supporting this show. To learn more, visit thenextreel.com/membership. Don't forget to do the stuff you're supposed to do with your podcasts. Rate, review, subscribe, and of course, listen. But perhaps most importantly, share. Please let any of those movie lovers in your life know about the show. The best way we have to get more listeners to the show is you. Thanks. Coming up, we at the Film Board will talk about Dune.
The outsiders ravage our land. Their cruelty to my people is all I've known.
So you're going tomorrow?
Yes, I'm going tomorrow with the advance team.
I'd like you to take me with you.
Are you trying to get me court-martialed?
Can I trust you with something? I've been having dreams about a girl fallen in battle. Felt like a vision.
Dreams make good stories, but everything important happens when we're awake.
You're the future of House Atreides.
You have to be ready.
There is no call we do not answer. There is no faith that we betray.
They're not human, they're brutal.
What if I'm not Dad? You'll still be the only thing I ever needed you to be.
Come on!
My son. I know you.
Tonight, the bloodline ends forever. Kill them all.
This is an extermination. They're picking my family off one by one. Only together can we stand a chance.
Let's fight like demons.
It's not safe for you here.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. For the fear is gone. Only I will remain.
This is only the beginning.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.